Greetings, Chuck the Blue Wizard here, and I have a confession to make. I freaking love One Piece. If I had a straw wizard's hat, I'd wear it right now. I also love orcs from Warhammer 40K. And I also have a strange obsession with combining things that I love. So, let's do that. Roll that theme! No. The real One Piece theme.
Yo! Don't give it up, Luke. Perfection.
But wait! I've done this bit before. It's me from the future. And I'm here to tell you that you should subscribe to the channel. Also, give the video a like, leave a comment, share the video, please, so I can keep making videos and feel validated. And also, hopefully you actually like the stuff I am putting out. And I'm gonna try my best not to do this bit again. Time travel is really taxing on a body, and oh, I probably should just go back to the video. Gaio. If you were there, you know. Now, before we get too far into things, let's address the elephant in the room. My face. I know what you're thinking, really handsome, and thank you, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the big scratch on my head. I promise that's not anime makeup. My 6-month-old decided she wanted to grab my hair and left a great big old scratch there. Super hardcore dad wound.
'Tis but a scratch.
But that's not important. What is important, so for the uninitiated, One Piece is an anime, and it has been out forever, and it has over 1,000 episodes as of this recording, and I have seen them all. Yes, I'm that person. I've loved One Piece since I first read it in the American version of Shonen Jump way back in the distant past of 2003. I was there, Gandalf. I was immediately hooked. In the issue that I read, which was the second issue of American Shonen Jump, it featured Roronoa Zoro, and he quickly became my favorite character. Besides Luffy, of course. You gotta love Luffy. He's the main character, he wears the straw hat, and I mean, everybody knows him. He even had a float in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. But chances are good you know who Zoro is too, even if you've never seen an episode of One Piece. If you've heard about it at least, you know that there's a character that uses 3 swords. And that's Zoro.
He's just like a samurai.
He uses 3 swords. He's an alcoholic, he's fight obsessed, he is an overpowered swordsman, and he has an absolutely terrible sense of direction. Man could get lost on a straight path. And I couldn't think of a better character in One Piece to turn into an orc. And if you know 40K, you know the orcs. If you don't know 40K, you probably know who the orcs are. They're those big, green, mean soccer hooligans who scream, "Wah!" They're fight-obsessed, rambunctious, fungus guys that their technology operates on belief. So you can see a little bit of overlap here between these two characters. Plus, Zoro's main color scheme is kind of green. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a one-to-one comparison. I'm not saying Zoro is an orc. What I'm saying is that he's a good character to kind of make an orcish character of. See, Zoro has a loyalty to his crew, well, most of them, whereas orcs only have loyalties to themselves, and they have a size-based pecking order. The biggest boss is the right boss. So I'm gonna make a conversion, a custom figure. It's not gonna be Roronoa Zoro. Oh no. This is Roronoa Zorko. So right off the bat, I'm gonna get it out of the way. I am not an expert sculptor. I have done a little bit of conversion work that required some sculpting before, and that's it. So this was kind of a challenge for myself as well, just to see if I could pull it off. It's something I've been thinking about for a while, and wanted to give it a shot. I also made the very ill-advised choice of using only a modern Warhammer 40K orc kit for this particular conversion. I actually used 2 kits. I used the boys kit, the newest one that's not from the Armageddon box set, the one before that. and the Orc Commandos Kill Team box. So the first thing I did was to file the scars off the back of the body. Because scars on the back are a chopper orc's shame. That's a whole Zorro thing, if you know, you know. Then I had to make the head hold a chopper in its mouth. The head from the Commando set is perfect since it's already holding a dagger and the head's in two parts, the jaw and the top. So first I cut the dagger out, then the handle was very thick. So I had to shave it down so that the mouth could hold it and still have enough of a connection point to have that handle in its mouth. I glued that in with some sprue glue and let it sit. So sprue glue is just plastic glue. I use Tamiya, and what you do is you take a bunch of spare sprue parts and you drop them in a half empty bottle of Tamiya or your plastic glue of choice, and you let that melt. And just use spare sprue parts. You don't have to use bits or anything crazy like that. And it'll create this sort of gray plastic goo that works as a perfect filler. I also cut the skull and pouch off of the waist of the body so that the belt was smooth all the way around except for the buckle. And then I used a thin layer of sprue goo on the spots that I filed the scars down on with. This should smooth it down to be more like the rest of the back. It's a little bit of an experiment, but as you see later on, it does work out really well. So now if you look at the torso, you might be thinking there's some pretty big chunks of the anatomy missing. See, for whatever reason, when they redid the Orc Boy set, which if you don't know is just the basic Orc troop in Warhammer 40K, for some reason they decided to make it push fit, and this was from like an Orc starter box. It came with a bunch of other Orc models. It was basically like a detachment in a box, and the boys came in very strict poses that were all push fit models, which means that they're not modular. You're supposed to be able to just push them together without glue. The push fit models are very difficult to convert, and if you know anything about orcs or orc players, that seems kind of silly. But I soldiered on. So I decided I need to use the neck and the shoulders from the original Shoot-A-Boy, because the shoulders from the commando arms that I was using were not lining up with the way that the body was twisting, and it was leaving huge gaps that would be way too difficult to fill. So I did a little surgery, and I cut the arms off of the shoulders and the head from the neck. And I think it worked out pretty okay. It was very fiddly to get my X-Acto blade in between the lines on the muscles so that I cut it in a way so it didn't completely destroy the bits of the model that I was trying to use. After I glued in the shoulders and neck, I filled in the cracks with sprue glue, and then I started to cover the large gaps with a milliput. I took my combo mix of green stuff and milliput, about a 1-to-1 mixture of the two, and I cut little squares of it after I rolled it very flat, because I was going to use this as my sculpting material for the cloth bits on Zorro, or Zorko. So I first started with the bandana, and I tried to create these nice long strands off of it, and you'll see how that works out for me later. Then it was on with the coat. Now I used as a reference a pre-existing figure of Zorro who's kind of standing in the position that I wanted him in. It's not a perfect thing, but the legs are sort of in the same pose, so I used that as a visual reference for how I was going to sculpt the coat that's kind of like hanging off of his waist. Because after a time skip, Zorro sort of wears this outfit where he's mostly bare-chested, and his coat just kind of hangs down along his waist, and he wears this black bandana over his head, which is kind of his signature thing for when he gets super serious. So again, I am not a professional sculptor anywhere close to it, so this was me just kind of winging it. So I took the thin piece of the mixture and molded it around to kind of sit in a position that's sort of similar to what was on the figure. Then I went in and I used some silicone tools that I put Vaseline on so that it would move a little bit easier and wouldn't stick to my combo here. And I went about putting some folds in the fabric. In hindsight, it's probably not enough, but this is a first attempt, and I think that the message is received. Then I cut out a couple of longer strips and folded them in to be the sleeves of the coat. that are gonna be sort of like also dangling and tucked under this waistband that I'm going to make later to just sort of hide where they would naturally connect so I don't have to worry about like realism. So I used the milliput to sculpt this waistband that probably should have gone underneath the coat, but he's also wearing a sash thing in this figure, and I figure, this could work for both. It hides all of the things that I want to be hidden, and it looks pretty good actually, so I'm not going to be overly concerned about where it needs to go. Also, the orc's torso isn't long enough to support all of the stuff that's on this figure. It just wouldn't work spatially, so having the sash here that is also his waistband, that works pretty nicely. And again, this isn't Zorro, this is Zorko. Now after all that had dried, I went in and I started to attach the other parts of the orc figure. That started with the arms. The arms are not in the poses that I would like, but these were the only arms that I had left. They would have to do, the ones with swords at least. And I cut off the shoulders on the commando arms and just glued them in the spots relatively where the shoulders are on the torso after I had cut the other arms off. Now, this left some gaps, but I would fill those in later with more milliput. Now with the bandana, you can see that the long tied off parts broke off at some point while it was drying, and I was trying to sculpt it so that like I could cut it off and maybe like attach some other ones on there, but it just ended up falling off. So I decided, screw it, we'll just glue the head on and then I'll add a bandana on later. I was going to try to use the neck piece from the commando box to connect it, but it was too long. So I just connected the orc head that I had with the choppa in it to the body after I cut some lines in it to try to give it a place to grip. It worked out, and I would go in later and fill in the gaps and sculpt some more neck muscle on there to fill out the difference. So I filled in the spots where the large gaps with some more of that milliput mixture, milliput green stuff mixture. And I did that because it's a little bit easier to sculpt than regular milliput, and that let me get those nice neck muscles, and I smoothed out everything that had like fingerprints on it, got rid of the excess. In the end, I think it turned out pretty well, structurally speaking, but I still needed to add the bandana. It's a very important part of Rornora, Zorro, and Zorko. So I sculpted a new bandana, and this time I made the tie-offs a lot shorter and kind of like used the body as a brace for them, so when they hardened, they wouldn't just snap off very easily. I also had to go in with the mixture and finish up filling in the arms so that they would all look like one big arm muscle. And with that, it was done. I went ahead and said, we're calling it, and I'm pretty happy with the way that the final result ended up looking like. I'm not super in love with the direction that all the swords are in, but if I ever tried this again, I probably would go with a different pose and also a different model kit to work on it with. So there you go, the conversion came out well and I'm happy with it, but now of course I need to paint it. And there's only one way to do that with this particular model.
Well, I guess there's no other choice, is there? Three brush style. Now, 1,000 thin coats. So to give you a little insight as to what's going on while I'm painting too fast for human eyes, my basic style is just layering dark colors and mixing them with lighter colors until we bring up to a light highlight color that brings out the details. I went with the natural green skin for the orc, and of course I couldn't make the coat green, so I made it blue instead. And following that, I made the belt sash thing red. Not the same kind of burgundy that the figure has, but a more saturated red to match the blue. Then I left his pants and boots black, and the bandana black as well. Didn't use the green undertone because, well, Zorko's already green. Just painted the one eye red, because Zoro only has one eye, so does Zorko. And then we capped it off with some nice shiny choppa blades using metallic paint with some copper bronzish hilts and pommels. The last thing I did was to bring out the skin tone just a little bit more to give it one last final highlight. If you're interested in seeing a full painting tutorial, one that human eyes can follow, then let me know, and I can definitely do that for you.
Right, I'm Roran Dog Zorko. A lot of other orcs will tell you anything dies with your Jaka. So that there's nothing that can't die by using more chopper. I'm Zorko, and I'm gonna be the best chopper orc in the galaxy.
I hope you liked that little anime sequence there. And for those of you who prefer subs over dubs, there's going to be a little link in the description so you can hear me horribly pronounce Japanese. So there you go, Roranog Zorko is ready. And it's a pretty cool conversion, and it combines two things that I love very much, Warhammer 40K Orcs and One Piece. So yeah, what are some properties that you think would be cool to convert a Warhammer 40K model into? Have you done some yourself? Let me know in the comments below, and I would love to take a crack at some other things too. Maybe I'll do another Straw Hat at some point in the future. Who knows? Thanks so much to my patrons for sticking with me through all this. They got to see the picture of Zorko in just the gray and green stuff before anybody else got to see it. So that's a big thing. And that way you know what I'm working on before the video even comes out. They also got to see this video early, even though it was late. Sculpting took a lot longer than I thought it would. And hey, if you want to support me on Patreon, you can find the link in the description below. And if you don't want to support me on Patreon, well, then just how about giving the video a like, comment, and subscribing to the channel. We are very close to 500 subs on the channel. We're over halfway there, which would be huge for me. And while you're at it, just go ahead and why don't you share this video with a friend? Tell them, you know, hey, this guy's really weird and kind of paints models good. I'd appreciate it. But that's gonna do it for me. I hope you guys have an awesome day. And I don't know if I have a spell in me to get out of here like I usually do. So I'm just gonna go. Yeah, I'll see you later.
Blue Wizard needs food badly. Game over.